I think we are online.
Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. This is Essence of Science. Today, we're going to be talking about the psychology behind participation trophies. I'm Amanda Armagast.
Dominic Moore.
And Dr. Abbasi. And first of all, Amanda chose this subject, so she has to talk most of the talking.
Well, I'll also own up a bit. I feel like I had a good amount of pressure onto this topic too, so I'll help out, of course.
Let's be real here. I'm just going to be honest and clear the air. I actually didn't choose this topic. Dominic chose this topic, and I'm standing up for him. So maybe you should tone down the bullying before we talk about the psychology of why there are participation trophies and if we think they're good or not. And actually, I think that this is a really great start, because sometimes you need a participation trophy so then you can actually feel included or feel like you matter.
Well, I am kind of glad you started off with a point there, because a lot of the times we are seeing, especially generations nowadays, that children growing up with participation trophies, it's often espoused that they are less resilient, they are more fragile, their egos can't take it because as children, parents were afraid of their children feeling bad for failure. And so they were giving participation trophies. So there's a little dichotomy there of, oh, this generation is too soft, or this other generation is too weak. And well, they didn't really ask for the participation trophies, but that's kind of where a lot of that starts from. And there's a bit of a take on both sides. So
how much do you know about the history of participation trophies? Do you know maybe how long participation trophies have been around?
I'm actually not sure. I want to say it's somewhere around the last, well, they've seen an uptick in the last 30 years or so, like about 2 generations worth. But I don't know when they were first invented or who gets to have, I guess, the criminal record or whether or not that's good or bad.
What criminal record? What are we talking about again now?
Whoever first made participation trophies, what they were first used for.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Tell me.
Well, we're not too sure when the first one came out, but we do know that they've seen an upward trend over the last 30 years or so for the last 2 generations, particularly Gen Z and with this new one, Generation Alpha, as this being called. And then there's not as many of them in the millennial generation, but there's a good divide there between people who are older millennials who don't really remember getting participation trophies and people who are younger millennials who do.
So now, it might not be clear to everybody, maybe it's to most of people, but not everybody, what the participation trophy is at all. So, Amanda, do you want to
participation trophy is, let's say, when you are in your kindergarten soccer league, at the end of the season or at the end of the game, everyone gets a trophy. You don't get a trophy for winning. You don't get first place, second place, third place. Maybe they still have those in addition. But to make nobody feel left out, everyone receives a participation trophy. So Dominic and I were talking about it a little bit, and we think that there's good and bad to having a participation trophy. So obviously, it's the positive of having a participation trophy is maybe the child doesn't feel left out and they feel like they still got to accomplish something, or feel like, yes, they participated and they won in participating. Whereas the other side of it is maybe making people a little bit too sensitive, where they feel like they deserve something just for attending, not necessarily for how well they participated, or even if, like, okay, in soccer, for instance, you can just show up to the game, sit on the sidelines the entire time, not run with your team, and get a participation trophy. Was that participating or was that attending?
Well, okay, participating, attending trophy. You and I, we were in India not long ago, right? Everybody who was there gave a talk, got a plastic model of the castle at Bangalore. You remember? And I was looking at that, I was thinking, God, so much plastic waste. But everybody got it, no matter if they did a good presentation, a bad presentation. Everybody who presented got, and they got a picture. So it is not only for kindergarten people.
Yeah.
Well-accomplished surgeon well-accomplished surgeon still get participation trophies and so on. So what did interest you into this, Dominic?
Well, I was having a bit of a discussion with a group of friends of mine, and one of them brought up pretty strongly against the idea of participation trophies. And a lot of the times, if I feel like, I don't know, particularly spirited, I like to play the devil's advocate, whether or not I have a stance for that or not. So I was trying to think of good reasons for participant trophies being good. And as I was trying to elucidate more of his argument, I kind of came more firmly into my idea that I do think they have a positive role. So that's kind of where this idea originally
go into it.
So one of the first ones I'd like to bring up is his point, which I thought was very solid at the beginning, and that's why I thought it was important to counterpoint it, was the idea of hardship making you stronger. And the one that he kind of went to is, again, he's not an allergist, so let's give him some breaks there, but the idea of you get exposures to things younger, and gradually you'll build up an immunity to it. And that's sort of the idea behind getting immunizations and whatnot, is that, okay, your body is able to see what this might be. So that way, when you actually encounter the disease, you'll have an idea of being able to mount an immune response. He was going on about peanuts, and I don't really think that giving children peanuts if we don't know they have a peanut allergy is a great way to do things. So
let's go back, since you mentioned that. As a matter of fact, there is a good science behind it, that when children are born very early on, to just put a little bit of a peanut or something nuts on their lips, in their mouth, that makes them not developing peanut allergy in the future.
Really?
Science behind that.
Or maybe a less extreme example could be about our conversation about food intake, where I was telling Dominic, like, in Mexico, you're not feeding your baby food. You're feeding your baby food that you're eating too. So they develop more of a tolerance to spicy food. Whereas like a European, if they're eating spicy food, they think even ketchup is spicy sometimes. So you can continue, Dominic, with the built.
Yeah. So he was positing sort of that idea. And while I do think that does make sense, because oftentimes struggle builds character, and that's what sort of shows through with people, that a lot of the times if you have conflict, then a lot of the times you know how to overcome conflict growing up. And he was saying that a lot of the issues that we have with certain current generations and their difficulties with conflict resolution and talking to people and kind of getting through things, and he used the term of being more sensitive, is the idea that they're not used to this abrasion, this level of conflict, and that participation trophies happen to play a role in that. So my counterpoint to a lot of this was the idea that at a certain point, conflict no longer breeds ways to get over conflict. It just makes scars.
True.
And that's sort of the idea of, if you, let's say you work out every day, right? That's a little amount of stress that you're putting on your system that's going to gradually increase your endurance and your tolerance. If every day you're out there like trying to push a truck or something like that, eventually you're just going to hurt yourself. So too much, and suddenly you're having not only diminishing returns, but you're getting negative returns on that. And so
few basic comments on that. And number one, you're absolutely right. It's everything about the dosing. Poison is not a poison until you reach a proper dose. And is there anything more vital for life than water? Enough water will drown you. So, and I think we should, in the final version, change the name of this conversation, Sense of Science, the psychology of participation trophy, which is truly a valid the concept, not only what you described for the children, but as you saw as well for very accomplished group of surgeons in India, everybody got a participation trophy. And then we cannot separate this from the psychology of human behavior and how you can modify human behavior. This is all what is about. Obviously, we have different names for that. This participation trophy is just one form of it, but it's about what does it take to modify human behavior in a favorable, or what we consider favorable way, versus unfavorable. What is the better way of reward versus punishment versus
Yeah.
because participation trophy is in a category of reward.
It's the carrot.
Yeah, it's a reward motivation of a person or individual with reward versus punishment, and practically encouraging them to just have a good feeling about even being there. Because I give you credit for that. The half of winning a game is just participating. If you are not there, you can't win. Doesn't matter. Everything else becomes irrelevant. No, but if you don't mind, Amanda, saw a little my frustration when we started with this topic. The reason I'm a little frustrated with this topic is because I have read books ad nauseum about this modification in regard of marketing, branding, and many of that goes in the category of not modification of human behavior, but manipulation of human behavior.
Oh,
because these are not far away from each other. Okay, if you know the human psychology and you know how you can modify somebody's behavior, as well, you know how you can manipulate people. And advertisement, marketing, branding is full of that, right? Right now, I'm craving for a Diet Coke, which is a water, sugary water, carcinogenic water, with bubbly with some carbon dioxide in it. Right now, I love to have some of that right now, because my behavior is modified to some reward system exactly for that. Now, having said that, let's talk about human behavior. Did you know many of the reward system in our brain exist as well in reptiles and birds?
No, I did not.
Many of our reward system understanding comes actually from birds. Guess what? From pigeons.
Well, people don't give pigeons enough credit. Honestly, they don't. No, they honestly don't give pigeons enough credit.
Yeah. Well,
I'm being so serious.
Okay, well,
they're cute.
Amanda,
they saved our lives.
When did they save our lives, Amanda?
By being our messengers.
Oh, you know what? They were a very valuable source of communication.
Exactly. Okay. Pigeons saved lives, and then we just destroyed them and put them on the streets of New York and treat them like trash.
Well, you're right, Amanda. Yeah, we don't give them credit. But the idea of using pigeon for human behavior tells us how far past the brain structures are engraved for those behavior patterns, for those reward patterns. Okay? Now, there are some drugs that are addictive, right? Like people, cocaine, right?
Well, isn't sugar? I thought sugar is even more addictive than cocaine.
Yeah, well, there are lots of drugs that are addictive, and sugar is one of them. All of them latch into a path in our brain that produce some internal, literally internal transmitters, all of them. Guess what? These reward systems, all of them, latch to the same system. It's as easy as that, meaning that you make people feel good, and there are many ways of making people feel good. Like trophy participation trophy is one of them. There are many, many other ways, but as well as cocaine and sugar. That's why we are our society is getting bigger and bigger. Now, what do you think? What we learned from pigeons, Dominic? What do you think? What the psychologist learned from pigeon?
Honestly, my first guess would be food as reward is the most intrinsic modification you can make. Give food for positive activity.
Positive reward is more effective than negative punishment.
Perfect. Yes, that is what we learned from pigeons, and they did that. they put electric shock if they had the wrong
sorry.
behavior.
Before you explain, I want to explain the difference between positive reward and negative punishment.
Go ahead.
So when in psychology, when you're looking at positive and negative, it doesn't mean good and bad. It means adding or subtracting. And then reward and punishment, that's pretty obvious. So you can have a positive punishment and a negative punishment. A positive punishment would be adding pain. A negative punishment would be taking away something you like. A positive reward is adding something good. A negative reward is taking something you don't like.
Very good.
Amanda is an expert on this.
That was clean. And that was actually really important too.
That's pretty good.
It's an important
Distinction.
Yeah.
So 4 ways, right?
mhm.
4 ways. Now, generally, positive works better than negative across the board. And then in the positive, can you describe the 2 positive, what you just said?
A positive punishment would be like electric shock. That's adding pain. Where a positive reward would be like money, like or food. You're giving the pigeon a treat.
Yeah. So, well, in all studies, giving food, positive reward, has worked best. But yet now I'm going to shatter your participation trophy, Dominic, based on the studies. So this is the actual study. They let the pigeon pick on a picture or on something they want, like a button. And every time they pick on the button, a small little corn comes out and the pigeon is happy. By the way, for any of this system to work, the pigeon has to be middle hungry. They learned if the pigeon is full or if pigeon is starving hungry, they can't learn. This mechanism doesn't work. Catch that. That is important. If you like, I can just talk 2 hours about that. But now, so middle level hungry pigeon is in a cage or box or place, picks on a button, and every time he picks on the specific button, a corn comes out, that pigeon is happy. Now, it doesn't, every 3rd time something comes out. Pigeon is still picking. Then every 5th time, 5 picking, and then it comes out. Yes, if you continue that, and pigeon has learned that, how high can you go with the number of the pigeon has to pick to get a corn before pigeon says, this doesn't make sense to me anymore, I'm stopping? How many picks? How far can you take it?
Like in between corns?
Yeah, but at first you pick 3 times, you get a corn, but then 5 times, 7 times, and so on. How far can you do that before before pigeon says, this is just not right, I'm not doing this anymore?
I'm gonna go with 120 pecks.
Mine was 7.
You can hang in there, pigeon. I know you got this. You're gonna get that corn.
In my head, I'm like, it has to be less than 10, right?
For you, for pigeon, it is 1007.
Oh my gosh.
He wants that corn.
He's a hungry bird.
He wants that
No,
corn.
but that you see the addictive potential of positive reward. You go to Vegas, you lose most of the time. You just have to win because that part of your brain is so old. You just have to win in a rare occasion, and then everybody talks about how much they win money in Vegas. And yes, they have built all that facility, so everybody goes there making money, right?
Yeah, you just get rich there, right?
That's how they built it.
Yeah, especially the worst is the slot machine. That's where you lose most of the money, but that is the most addictive one, because you see again, 1 in 1007 is enough to keep the system going. Would you have thought that?
No, I thought 120.
Absolutely not. I think about when I play Candy Crush, if I don't pass a level in like 10 times, I turn off my phone. I'm like, I'm not gonna pass it then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but there is a natural reason why biology wants us that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, if that pigeon's getting a corn that frequently, it won't die. It will survive.
And
No,
if it's
but
that determined to get corn, it won't die.
Mhm.
If it'll wait 1,007 times to get the corn.
Yeah.
but now, as well, what they found out from pigeon, the best way to teach the pigeon to do that is being random.
There's no pattern.
To get well, if there's a pattern, they'll learn that, and then they learn only that pattern. But if it's random, they apply it in a broader base and so on. So, and guess how much of that knowledge our casinos are using to keep you in a lot?
100%.
Well, that human psychology. We are more predictable than we think. Now, there are people who have less addiction potential that after 10 times losing say, I'm done with this. I'm going nowhere. But there are people, if they win once and then they win every 10 times, then every 20 times, you can drive them to do everything for you, reducing the reward for them. Have you noticed how many people manipulate each other that way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So participation trophy, right? You go to school, you get a star, golden star, a sticker that doesn't even cost a fraction of a cent on somebody's, homework and so on. And they're so happy, right? That is a good reward to show the kid that, work hard, learn something from that, so on. And then you have the other kind of, manipulative way of doing that, that somebody gives you high praise, where you know exactly you didn't really deserve that. And then you understand down the road, you have been doing things that has no benefit to you, but just to the other person. And you have been doing that because you're craving for that praise. You're craving. So I hope you understand my high side of disappointment that every time I hear about the participation trophy, it reminds me how manipulative people can be and how prone to manipulation people are. So now, one of the things that but you have to understand that when I got that piece of plastic from India, my mental thing was saying, "What a waste of plastic." But my inner peace was I still took it with me.
Your ego
over the board. You see that there? But even people who know about that are not protected.
Well, I actually had a different perspective on this participation trophy situation, and it goes kind of along with what you're saying. I can see how with ego, a participation trophy can be a good way to demotivate somebody. Because, for instance, let's say you, and I'm not saying this was the case for the conference, I'm just using this as let's say you're on your soccer team, and you're the star athlete, like you played your hardest. You trained every day for your game, and then your teammate didn't even play but still got the same trophy as you. That's a really good way to demotivate you to not want to try as hard, because you got the same exact reward as someone who didn't try hard. Whereas same with the conference. If you prepped for that conference, like you practiced your speech, you knew it was the best speech, and then you saw someone literally reading off the teleprompter and he did a really bad job, you guys got the same trophy. That's in my eyes, that's a good way to tell someone that their efforts weren't as worth it, because you would have gotten the same outcome if you did nothing.
Now, that concept as well is valid. And one of the problem in United States is that we put all the level. Now, let's be honest about that. People are not equal. People are not the same. Okay? Somebody listen to a mathematical thing and it has it in. It just sinks in. And you can send another person 4 years to school. Still, they don't know what the algebra is versus what the calculus is. Okay. Now, one of our problem in the United States, we want to be truly egalitarian at any price. And let me tell you, I do believe it does have backfired on us. Whereas, somebody maybe is an artistic person and doesn't want to know anything about calculus. Let them be artistic. The other person is a math genius. Now, in our math class, if we try to comply with the needs of higher group and lower group, then we are going to do this not justice to any of them. And that becomes a problem when we as a nation, just cater to the mediocrity. Okay? Whereas in other countries, they truly early on separate this. I'm talking about European countries, even many European countries. They separate this group of people and then concentrate on their needs and create high-level functioning people that can change the world. We are trying to cater to mediocrity. Now, we do that in the universities, right? So what do we do? In our K-12, we create mediocrity, meaning that once you are out of high school, you're really just, at best, mediocre.
Yeah.
Then we try to separate them in the higher education. Well, you go to a X community college or you go to MIT. Then we separate them. So we do it in a way, and it is more or less working as well for us, but because those people who really cannot keep up, they will be wasting $90,000 a year in MIT. And nobody has that kind of money. So our cruel and economical disparity as well, it chips in there. If you are very good, you get a scholarship, then you can still go to MIT and Harvard, and you don't have to pay for that. But if you're mediocre and you don't have the money, you are not going to MIT or Harvard. Okay, so having said that, I understand that this participation trophy caters to our mediocrity, and so I'm personally not a big fan of it, but it works. It works in a way that, and it doesn't work only for toddler and kindergartner. It works for all of you. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, look at the holidays, like Christmas time, you kind of have to give everyone in the office a gift. Or like or a card. You have to include everyone. So
can't just choose one.
Yeah, you can't just pick and choose and make, like, you can't say, hey, I'm only going to give my high performers a Christmas card. You have to give everyone a Christmas card because everyone, is part of the team and stuff.
Everyone is special.
Yeah, right.
Everyone is unique.
Kind of an interesting point, because we've talked a lot about the participation trophies, but I don't know if we've talked at all about the first place, the second place, and the third place in addition to that.
Yeah.
Because I think that brings up an interesting dichotomy of, let's talk about the Christmas present thing, for example. Let's say the Christmas card is the participation trophy, right? If everybody got a Christmas card, but 3 people got actual presents, how would that go?
You get lots of angry, unhappy people. Well, was I not good enough?
Okay, let's go back to the soccer example. So maybe everyone gets a participation trophy and then the top 3 athletes get first, second, third. I think that might be a good way to motivate people. Like, yes, I still tried, but I can try harder and to get second,
Hmm.
or maybe I don't really care. Like when I was in sports, it's not possible for me to care less to get a trophy or a medal.
Mhm.
I never saved any of them. So I wouldn't be one of those people that would try harder just to get the medal.
Yeah.
I would more try harder to make my teammates like say nice things about me. So
Oh, interesting.
we're all motivated differently, but I think it would motivate some people.
Amanda, you're pretty good at reading people and appeal to their emotions and so on. If you really want somebody to respond to you in a positive way, what do you do?
This is much different than the conversation we're having because I don't think that you can motivate everyone the same way. If I were to motivate you, I would motivate you much differently than I would motivate
How would you
Dominic.
motivate me? How would you motivate
Motivate you
Don't tell them
by
the secrets of the trade. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I would motivate you by probably, or like I would make you, okay, maybe not motivate to say like, oh, you're doing great. But if I wanted you to do something for me versus if I wanted Dominic to do something for me, I would do something for you first that I know that you need off of your plate. So like if you wanted, like there's a lot of things that you've been asking me to do. So I would say like, like, hey, I got the electronic sign fixed.
digging deeper.
Looks good from up here.
Yeah, so I would tell you, I'd be like, hey, I got the electronic sign fixed. And then while you're happy with that, I would be like, can you do this for me quick?
Mhm.
Where Dominic, I guess I would do it pretty much the same. Maybe I would give Dominic some food,
Mhm.
bring it from home, and then say, by the way, this is what I need done.
Hey,
So
you
I
remember-
think what I'm trying to say is you read the people. If you want to motivate an individual, you have to do it how that person wants to be motivated.
I want to just give you a compliment, Amanda, how natural that comes to you, because we were watching that our 3D printer we just purchased and was printing something, and one of us, I'm not going to call names, who goes every day to gym and works out, was swinging a hammer, and in the chat group, what did you say?
I said, wow, Muscle Man can't even break it.
Oh, you see that there?
But
see
you know
that there?
what?
Muscle Man.
But this is actually after that, Incan texted me and she's like, you're so mean. And I was
What?
like, I know. I told her, no, it's a compliment. He has big muscles. I always tell him, like,
Muscle
what's wrong?
Muscle Man. Yeah, you see that
Yeah.
there? So, you find out what is that entity hungry for,
Mhm.
and you give them that. Now, in case of Dominic,
He's literally hungry.
it is literal. It's literal. Okay. So by the way, Dominic,
It's so easy.
I have a very good high-end the handmade the sausage from Alexandria for you. I'm for the other boys. I have one piece. I have one big pack. I'm going to divide and give all of you.
Right.
Yeah. So sausage, yeah, it's good. It's good. But understanding what that the entity is craving is a big thing. Now, the participation trophy especially works for people who are hungry for attention. And at the end of the day, everybody's hungry for attention to some degree,
Mhm.
except Dominic. Dominic is hungry for food.
Yeah, the food needs to look at me, nothing
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
So, but it is good to know that is one of the counteraction about feeling that you cannot be manipulated. Know what you're hungry for. So know what you're hungry for. If you know what you're hungry for, and then you know your borders, you know your environment, then you're less susceptible. You're never secure, but you're less susceptible. So next time somebody bring you a juicy hamburger, Dominic, think about what does he or she wants from me.
It's
Okay.
gonna be worth it.
Yeah, right. I know that's actually the thing. A lot of times when people try and give me like compliments or words of affirmations, I'm thinking like, now what? What's coming up after this?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you do it naturally, but people go actually to school, especially spies and FBI and so on. They literally go to school, learn is the art of manipulating people and being immune to other people's manipulation. That is a really high level of science, and there are books out there, there are lots of information out there, but it all comes back to that our brain is hardwired to not give up, just keep looking for things it needs to experiences. And you remember we talked about that for the pigeon?
Mhm.
It's a survival thing, meaning that you can fail, but this is a good thing as well, because in anything you do, you can fail 1,000 times, you have to succeed only once.
It's kind of true.
Okay, that is how you learn. That is how you learn to walk. That is how you learn to ride a bike. That is how you learn language. You fail 1,000 times, and if your brain wasn't hardwired to concentrate on positive rather than negative, then you wouldn't learn anything. Now, there are exceptions there. There are lots of things. This is not about positive and negative. This is about learning. Your brain is learning patterns. In the same way as well, your brain can learn negative pattern, but it is still the same path like a positive thing. Like like you learn to be anxious. You learn to have anxiety because you have anxiety 50 times when you see a shadow. Okay, big deal. But you're not anxious when one of those times that shadow in the dark is a tiger, then you are a food. See, this goes way beyond our conversation about the psychology of participation trophies. It's a psychology how our brain learns new experiences, and here is just one of them. Now, I think we can talk way more about this, but I don't believe anything else that we say is directly related to participation trophies. Just related to the basic mechanism of how our brain engraves these pathways, and so on. And we have a good understanding of it, actually, and we know how we can even break those patterns. And you guys have, I'm sure you guys have heard of lobotomy, right?
Yeah.
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 It's a common joke, right now, actually.
What is the joke? I want to know.
Like saying oh, I need a lobotomy after that, or
because I want to unlearn it.
Yeah.
But something I want to unlearn it. Now, did you know for lobotomy? Okay, for people who don't know, somebody found out. Don't ask me how. The thinnest part of our skull is just above our eye, in the roof of our eye socket. The bone there is paper thin. So you literally can put an ice pick there, put it up, swing it back and forth, and then you disconnect the front of the brain from the rest of the brain. Guess what? Many of the learning pattern that we learn is in front of our brain. We call frontal lobe. And the real name of that is frontal lobotomy. That's the official name of it. And it used to be extremely successful for people who had tremendous amount of depression, behavioral disorder, aggression, and so on. You would do that, they would lose that bad habit, but they would lose much more.
Yeah.
They would lose all the good habits as well. They would become like these apathic individuals that are good for nothing anymore. Okay, they're not aggressive, they are not depressive, but they have no other, human, they have nothing else there that makes them a human either. I'm talking about the behavioral pattern.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, What if I told you when my residency, we did plenty of lobotomy, but not the way it was done, meaning going something separating everything, but going there in the certain area of the brain, we call that the single gyrus, which is in the middle, and that is practically part of the very complex path that connect our frontal lobe to rest of our brain.
Mhm.
But more importantly, that specific area is for emotional response to bad experience.
Mhm, mhm.
Frontal lobe does a lot of things. Like imagine, using an analogy, imagine there are bad people in a building and lobotomy is going and bombing the hell out of the building and killing everybody innocent there. Whereas what we did, we went to the room where the bad guy was and just put a hole in him.
Mhm.
In that area, which is at less than a 5 millimeter by 5 millimeter, we put a needle in the top part of the singular gyrus, and then put electricity. We burned that, so we got all the good part of the lobotomy without the bad side effects of the lobotomy. So I can give you some example. Like these were kids that they would mutilate themselves, literally. They would cut themselves, they would insert sharp object in their own body and so on. And no kind of behavioral modification could help them. So we would do this procedure, cingulotomy, it's called cingulotomy. And then after that, it is like you're resetting a reboot button. Now they could learn not to do that. We have found out as well about that area as well is lots of emotional response to the pain, responsive for emotional response to the pain. Like literally, if you poke a hot iron in a cow, the cow runs away, but then 5 seconds later start grazing and has forgotten all about that, right? Most of that, your dogs doesn't keep grudge on you if you step on the dog, right?
Mhm. Yeah, a little tail.
Well, try to do that. Try to do that to a person. Brand a person. See if 5 minutes later she or he will be okay. Why? Because we have a lots of emotional response to that painful stimuli, and we don't forget about that. Now, guess what? When we did this cingulotomies for this patient who were chronic pain, they still would feel the sensory of the pain. When you ask what's your pain, 10 of 10, let's go have a coffee. But they would separate the emotional response of the sensory of the pain. Now, pain, what the way we feel it, is not just the sensory, it is our emotional response to the pain that makes pain so different for human than animal. Like animal don't have chronic pain. No animal that chronic pain has not been seen in any animal model whatsoever. Just acute pain. But we human, we have chronic pain because the stimuli comes, it creates its own loops in our brain, and that loops becomes its own thing. And if it's in our head real, it's real. It doesn't matter if I'm still having a nail in my toe or not. So, and we could, with cingulotomy, we could separate that emotional response. So practically, these patients still get the sensory of the pain, but don't have the emotional response of the pain. By the way, cannabis does the same thing. Cannabis separate the emotional response of the pain or bad experiences to think that many people, if they had a stressful day, many people, they get a tad high to just have a good time for the rest of the night. So
Yeah. Some people have shoulder pain.
some people do. So, but what it does actually, it separates that pattern that engrave a bad experience in your brain. Okay. Now, any kind of trophy, any kind of reward just does the opposite. It makes sure that that pattern is engraved more deeply in your brain. And not surprisingly, it used the same path as noradrenaline, catecholamine, and what is cocaine? What does cocaine do?
It's a
Cocaine
stimulant.
is a catecholamine reuptake inhibitor.
Okay.
So that's a fancy word to say your brain produces these reward transmitters, but then it absorbs it back to give it back to the next good experience. Cocaine blocks it, that reward transmitter stays there and stimulates you more and more and more. But then comes the crash, because if you don't take it back, next time for the next experience, you don't have any more reward to give.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you were talking about rewards like with pain. So if you get, like, let's say if every time you have a headache, you go and buy yourself a milkshake, your favorite sweet, does that mean you're probably going to get more headaches because you're basically like rewarding yourself for having a headache?
That's a very good question. I'm not aware of any study that says that, but naturally what you say makes sense. I know I'm a coffee addict. Coffee and cocaine and so on, they go same direction. On the weekend, when I drink less coffee, I have headache. Okay, so your argument is very sound, but I'm not aware of any study that really proved that. But it is very sound and it absolutely makes sense. So practically you're producing your own, that you're trying to justify to have another milkshake or a
No, milkshakes aren't my favorite sweet. And actually, that's not my headache cure either.
What is your headache cure?
I have a few.
What's the favorite sweet?
Well, my favorite sweet changes a lot. I'm really into creme brulee lately, which you can't bring me because it's like you have to make it on site.
Yeah,
and then I also really like flourless chocolate cake. That's one of my favorites. Not because I'm gluten-free or anything.
And whatever removed me from the vicinity as well is good for removing Amanda's
headache relief. Yeah, usually when I have a headache, I just have to be at home. No, actually, when I have a headache, a lot of times this is true, and you're probably not going to believe me. I actually put my cat on my head, and somehow
I believe you, Amanda. That is typical Amanda.
Somehow putting my cat on my head like relieves my pain.
Can you send us a picture? I want to see that, Amanda. Okay, we are going to post a picture of Amanda with the cat on the head.
It's always her belly.
It's a nice little heating pad.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's one of my cures. But
okay, I think we sort of covered most of this stuff here.
Well, thank you guys for joining. This was Essence of Science, and we talked about the psychology behind participation trophies. I'm Amanda Armagost.
Dominic Moore.
And Dr. Abbasi for Essence. Thank you both for being with us.
Have a safe weekend.